Welcome, everybody, to the Jurassic Park Podcast. I am your host again, Brad Jost, and today we're going to be discussing our full spoiler thoughts on Season 2 of Jurassic World Chaos Theory. All 10 episodes are out now on Netflix, so please go watch them. If you have not watched them yet, go watch them before listening to this episode. I don't want you to be spoiled on anything because we will be going into each and every little thing that we can possibly think of for this season, so please go watch the show first on Netflix. DreamWorks did a great job this season, so go check that out. And if you want to, you can go check out our spoiler-free episode as well. But let me introduce Tom, my good and only friend. This is the first time podcasting I've heard. What's going on, dude?
Yeah, man, I'm nervous. Is my microphone on? I was about to tap it, but that would have actually been very annoying for listeners. I'm doing good, man.
Good. We did our spoiler.
So let's Brad. We need to get into it. That Brad X cameo, right? But
true. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. That I got to see my name on the screen once again. But we have a lot to talk about. We did our spoiler-free episode, and we were kind of like itching to talk about some spoilers. So before we do that, though, as always, I try to give a shout out to DreamWorks for letting us watch this show in advance.
Yes.
To talk to Scott, and luckily we came prepared with spoiler-free questions for Scott and also some spoiler questions. Mm-hmm. So we will have a spoiler-filled question episode with Scott coming up at some point, not in this episode. This is going to be a solo, just our thoughts on the spoilers. So stay tuned for more Scott content coming your way. But thank you again to Scott, to DreamWorks, and Netflix, for everybody.
He's practically a regular contributor to the podcast.
Basically, I think if I put him in my spreadsheet and see like who's been on the most amount of episodes, he'd be up there. He's getting up there.
Yeah.
But again, full spoilers. So this is your last chance to back out before we start talking about some. All right, so let's just start with the biggest spoiler of them all. So they've been teasing it, and actually over the course of the last few days, they've been really teasing the broker. Right? They've been doing that online, and it's been fun to watch and see people speculate. And there's also a character that we've been wondering for a while. Where is this character? Wouldn't it be awesome if this character showed up? And they merged the two together. They merged the two together. I think you may have brought this up at some point. I don't know if we talked about her being the broker, but Soyona Santos is the broker in this season, and that was so huge. I mean, you had mentioned to me, I think, in one conversation that we had, like as soon as somebody said like, "Oh, we got to get her the thing" or something like that.
Yeah,
both
of
our
like
minds were like,
and there was a line.
We're like, oh, it's got to be Soyona Santos. So I thought that was a great reveal and such a threatening character. And I thought, for a character that we got kind of like the most thinnest like interpretations of a character in Jurassic World Dominion, it was just like, hey, here's this stylish character that has some dinosaurs. Well. Yeah, they expanded upon that character so well, and like gave us, which is what we've been saying, I think, about Chaos Theory in general, is they're giving us a lot of what we wanted from Jurassic World Dominion, whether you like Dominion or not. I think they're expanding upon that story and doing like the best thing possible for Jurassic World Dominion. So I think Soyona Santos was a brilliant addition here and handled so incredibly well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, it was just incredible. I'm gonna blow your mind, Brad, because I can actually talk about some really cool details about her because I wrote my spoiler review this morning and I wrote quite a bit about her. And I think it's so cool how they fleshed her out because they made her have a family connection to dinosaurs. So for anyone who doesn't know, there was a really famous fossil found in Mongolia that was the Velociraptor fighting the Protoceratops. And in the series, they say that Soyona's mother was part of the dig crew that found that fossil. So she kind of is saying dinosaurs were always a part of my life, and now I found a way to profit off of them. And I thought that was a really, really cool context for her to kind of give you an idea of how she's not just this person who has come into the dinosaur trafficking game out of nowhere. She's come into it because there is that familial bond, which I thought was a really nice way of handling it. And then I might have to go and get some water in a minute. And then the other detail of that I think is really cool is they build out throughout the episodes this idea that she's been traveling a lot broader. So Soyana, particularly when she first meets Brooklynn and they're talking about travel, she says she's been to Moscow, London, and Melbourne, but there's other places that are referenced throughout the rest of the series as well. And there's frequent reference made to the fact that Soyana has lots of different facilities, that some of them are breeding dinosaurs, that others are just holding locations. So it's really cool to me because not only do they use this character to build a character that's much deeper, much richer, has a lot more of a greater backstory, and is of course portrayed by the incredible Daishin Latchman, but they also take the opportunity to answer some of the questions that we've had for a very long time, which is, why are there more dinosaurs in the wild than escape Lockwood Manor? Because other people are breeding them and releasing them and trading them on the black market. How have these animals got off of continental USA? Because people are now trading them across the globe, and Soyona Santos is a big part of coordinating that operation. So her character alone, the reveal that it's her, bloody awesome. But then the way that they use that character to really broaden the world of chaos theory and give you a sense for this is how all of these things are connected is really, really cool. And you'll hear, I think you'll have heard in our non-spoiler video, there was a really funny moment where I asked Scott about like theories around the show, and he was like, oh, I wish we'd done some of the theories that you come up with. This is like the kind of thing that I would have been saying I wanted to see. So this is like icing on the cake, fantastic, exactly the type of connected, expanded material that I've been looking for. So I love that they use that character to leverage all of that storytelling.
Yeah. You know, like I said, they're doing
Boom!
like...
Take that as a guy with no notes.
They're doing the best work at expanding Jurassic World Dominion, and I think that's what makes like a companion series like this so great, which is why people love like the Clone Wars, because it expands upon you know, the prequel series and makes those movies better, and then, you know, from there, if you think about Star Wars, you've got the Clone Wars, then you've got Rebels, you've got so much expansion upon little pieces of information that just become this like really great thing. So I think they're doing a fantastic job in expanding Jurassic World Dominion, so that when you go watch Jurassic World Dominion, you can now think about Soyona Santos. And I'm very excited to do that, to rewatch that movie with a little bit of added context that
I think I might do it this weekend.
Yeah. And the funny thing was, when season 1 ended, the first thing I did was watch that Malta scene with her.
Yeah.
Like, just because I wanted to see like the Atrociraptors, I wanted to see her, and I think like you know, just because that's what we got in season 1 was like the handler, Microbangs, whatever we're gonna call her, doing her thing with the whistle, and so there was like you know, we knew that there was going to be a step up in the communication device at some point, and we were wondering where is Red, like where is that dinosaur. So there was a lot of questions, and they really fulfilled that and expanded on it. And now when I go watch Jurassic World Dominion, I can think of her being an artist, and you know, she did some great work, and I can think about her family having ties to this, and her saying like, oh, you could think of me as a paleontologist or something like that, you know. So I can think of this like history that she has, and how dark she is, and how threatening she is of a character. And I thought that was like a very cool added weight to this season, was her character just being so
100%.
imposing. And I think that's what's great about, you know, a lot of movies and TV shows, is you have a character that like is foreboding and like is kind of just one step ahead of everybody. Like she wasn't,
Yeah.
Brooklyn was spying on her, but like she knew it and she was ahead of the game and she was
Yeah.
ready and prepared for this situation. Even though she's not out there like carrying guns over her back, wearing armor, or like being this crazy character. She's just a normal person dressed in nice clothes.
Yeah.
And she's got one threatening little remote control thing, and that's it. And obviously an Atrociraptor behind her. But yeah, I thought Soyona Santos great addition.
Yeah, you touched on some like two things that I thought were really cool, which was first the inclusion of Red, right? Because that was such a big question in the community after season 1, which is where is Red? And the idea that actually she keeps one of them back with her as like a guard dog that's there to protect her, I thought was really, really cool. But then also I think you touch on something which they do really well with this character, which is she's really kind of presented as a sociopath in the sense that she is incredibly charming, incredibly likable at points. Like she feels like she has a lot of charisma, but then she will flip on somebody and kill them like that. And it's just such a menacing, like you say, character trope, because she seems really nice at times and then suddenly she can turn and be your worst enemy. And I think that just makes her even more imposing of a character. And I think that ties in nicely to the way she's presented in Dominion as well, because she kind of has this calm demeanor the whole time, doesn't she? Like even when things go crazy in Malta, you still kind of feel like she's in control of everything.
So a few things, if I can remember the first thing, but I got something. The second thing in my mind here just popped up was, we get. Oh, all right. I'll start with the second thing since it's fresh in my mind. You got her calm demeanor, right? And you see that she's like under arrest, and that the CIA I think they were the CIA, right?
Yes.
Like that is this storyline in Dominion is a direct tie to what Brooklyn is doing in this season. And she's saying, she's like taking photographs. She's trying to get all the evidence she needs to get her under arrest. So that's Brooklyn could be very well responsible for Barry and
the operation in Malta happening in the first place.
The entire operation in Malta. So she could be the one responsible for that entire thing, which is really cool to see where that will develop. Another thing is, I think one of your theories that we talked about last season was like something that Dodgson said about like we're not going to have another one of those breakdowns or so. I forget what
I didn't like what happened last time.
Yeah. So that gives us the perfect opportunity again to meet all those Atrociraptors up together, get them all with Soyona Santos. So the train is moving, man. We're going in the right direction and it's great. Like I love seeing these threads connect, and I think that's really, really awesome. The only thing I'm waiting for now is that direct crossover, that we got in season 3, right?
Happen.
We got it in season 3 of Camp Cretaceous, with the whole what was it? Fallen Kingdom intro was in season 3, right?
Yeah. I'm calling it now. Right. Are you ready for this?
Let's go.
I'm gonna call it. I think the crossover that we'll get is she will be the person that Delacour takes the juvenile Parasaurolophus from the start of Dominion to.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that I could see them tying that together without it feeling like it needs to be particularly expanded on massively. It's just a nice little moment of actually Soyana was in the background this entire time.
I'm ready for this crossover, and I feel like there could be some developments before we get to Malta. I think we could probably spend some time doing some other, like maybe a full season. But I feel like it's on the horizon. Like I hope we eventually do get that crossover where we see the entire Malta sequence play out with Brooklyn over there and Darius over there and Ben over there, Sammy and Yaz and Kenji. Like I hope we get that crossover eventually.
I don't think we're going to go that far. So it's interesting that that's what you want, because I think what you might get is like a crossover with Brooklyn giving all of her data files to Franklin and then Franklin taking that to the Dangerous Species Division and
Mm.
starting their investigation. I think that Chaos Theory as a whole will end with the investigation being started that leads to Malta. But what I think is going to be very interesting is, remember how this season ends, Brad? We get confirmation that she's linked up with Dodgson now and she's going to work with Biosyn. So I think
Yeah.
what there's real potential to do is show us more of Biosyn before the events of Jurassic World Dominion. And what I'm really curious about there is spending time with some of those Biosyn animals as well, like the Kets, the Pyro, etc. Because I really think there's an opportunity for them to do that. And also
Mm.
potentially, right, I mean, we have Ramsey and Malcolm who are investigating hexapod allies in Dominion. Is it possible that through her investigation, Brooklyn got an inkling of that and was the person to make Ramsey aware of it in the first place?
It's all possible, man. I think there's so many opportunities for things to meet up, and the plane takes off at the end of the season with Brooklyn and Soyona. Like, I would assume there's maybe heading to
To the
to
Dolomites.
to the Dolomites. Yeah, it's to
Yeah,
Biosyn, because that was like the last thing that we heard was that she's got a new lucrative like partnership going on,
yeah,
and I think that would be a great way to see that place for a little bit. We don't have to stay there. I
yeah.
think they can probably move on pretty
Brad,
quickly. What? What do you got?
you know who can come into the series? Kayla.
Yes, I know. That's where I'm getting
That
to,
would
because I
be
think
perfect.
like she was like the other person that I thought would be such a great fit for this season, and I always thought of her as like the way that the rest of the gang gets to the Dolomites.
Yeah,
Like, and this show is only a few months before Dominion, right? Isn't that what they said? It was only a few
yeah,
months. So like we don't have a lot of time. So I do think we'll get there eventually, and I do think we'll, you know, cross over at some point. Maybe like you're saying, maybe it just ends right before we get there. That's totally possible. But I think we're so close. And especially like I don't know how long season 1 took, but like there was at least a week or so, maybe a little bit more,
yeah.
2 weeks, because they were on the boat, I think, for a week. Um, so there's a lot of time passing here. So I think that the opportunity to do like a failed operation with the handler and Soyona Santos, and then maybe
Yeah.
that be the season 3 thing, and then maybe season 4, if we get that far. But I think the opportunity
Well,
is
I
there to
mean,
do some really cool crossovers.
there's the whole question of going past Dominion because we know from the
Mhm.
rebirth synopsis that the dinosaurs are dying out, so they could potentially go past Dominion and explore what started that process with the dinosaurs if they wanted to. But I don't think we're going to get that far. I really have a feeling that this is fundamentally our dinosaurs in the wild story, and then
Mhm.
other things will come afterwards.
Now, let me ask you, you just brought up Rebirth. Do you think there was any connection in anything here that could potentially lead to that movie? Because for so long, we kind of questioned, like, we didn't know where that movie was going to even take place last time we
Yeah,
did these recordings for season 1. So now that we know it's 5 years later, like, the opportunity to
yeah.
connect this show to that movie is there. They could potentially do it. We don't know.
Oh well,
It might have
yeah.
been too
I,
far
I,
along or something, but do you think there was anything that could be tied to that movie in any way?
all I'm gonna say to you is that Soyana Santos has multiple facilities. They're not the most modern facilities, judging by the facility in Senegal. I reckon she is the kind of person who would leap at the opportunity to acquire a former InGen facility.
Hmm. Okay. I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah,
Um yeah, I think there's like minimal things that could be tied like directly. I think the lab stuff that happened in Senegal was like the only thing that I'm like, okay, I could see that maybe having some tie to something, but also like the dinosaurs. I was wondering in when I saw the trailer, like you see the dinosaurs in this jungle setting. I was like, oh, maybe they are flocking that way. Maybe they are going
mm,
to these centralized locations where they're best suited. But that didn't really seem to be the case. So I do want to talk about Dr. Sarr, because that's why
Yes.
we have these dinosaurs in Senegal, and he's a new character, and very, you had mentioned with Scott, a very like Dr. Wu kind of guy, but
Yeah.
kind of the guy we thought maybe Dr. Wu would be, in a way, like, because he's like a very dark dude. He's like
He's like the
literally
worst
feeding,
version of Wu.
yeah, he's feeding
Yeah.
humans to dinosaurs. Like, so
He's
what
full
do
of
you think?
hubris.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote that down right here. He's just like, he's one of those exact kind of characters. I guess when you become a
Yeah.
genetic scientist in the world of Jurassic, you just become, you have too much of an ego, and I don't know,
Yeah.
playing God.
Scott made a really interesting point in our interview, which is he sees himself as an artist, so he's making like one of a kind creations. He's not thinking about the practicality of science as a product, and I think that's really interesting because that kind of almost gets to the heart of the dichotomy of scientific characters in Jurassic, right? Which is you have people like Mills, like Wheatley, who are looking at these things as a commodity to sell, and then you have people like Wu who are maybe looking at their science as an expression of art rather than an expression of creating a product for a pipeline. So I thought that was quite an interesting way of exploring it. I just think that it's another example of well, I mean, in our non-spoiler episode, this is the Jurassic trope I was talking about because it's a very Crichton trope, which is the idea that science is blinding for people and that you become so obsessed in the pursuit of science or the pursuit of art that you forget to think about ethical dilemmas. You don't question what you're doing. It just becomes all-consuming.
You
And I
could
think that Sarr...
you could say
God?
science is blinding for dinosaurs too.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah. You could. Yeah, you could. And we'll come on to that. We'll come on to that.
We'll get there.
But yeah, I just think Sarr is the re-emergence of a core Jurassic theme in an interesting way.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was very interesting that he was like not willing to mass produce or do anything like that. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So that was like a little bit of a difference there, and go a different way. But I just thought the idea of, we're continuing this hybridization kind of thing, not exactly the same way, but we're continuing that, because that's what they were doing throughout the entire Jurassic World storyline, was like, hey, we're gonna utilize these certain genes and things, and we're gonna isolate things and whatever we need to do to create the vision that we want. And I thought that was interesting that we're still going in that route. It didn't stop dead in its tracks with Dominion. So I think that's interesting. And we do know that, like, Colin does still, inform some of the story, or at least some of the outline or something, with this show. So it's just interesting to see it still going in that direction. And I appreciated it because it did it in a very tastefully kind of way that it wasn't so flashy and extravagant as some of the Jurassic World versions of that kind of technology and that kind of hubris. They created a dinosaur, and let's get into it, because they created the acoustic baryonyx.
Yes.
Which, as soon as that thing came out, I was like, oh,
dude, I was like,
that's
this
creepy.
Is so cool.
The coloring on the thing was very creepy with that white, and it's like,
it was Indominus Rex.
Yeah. And it wasn't like luckily it wasn't like a crazy specimen that had armor. It wasn't like a tank engine. It didn't have any kind of crazy, glow in the dark colors or anything. It was just a white dinosaur with 0 eyes, and it was it was a different way of hybridizing, is that a word? These creatures. It's still a 1-for-1 baryonyx, just with no eyes. They isolated the eyes, deleted them. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool, and the way that, and it was a great. Scott had mentioned when we were talking, he brought up A Quiet Place, and over the past few days, I've been
Yeah.
rewatching. I watched a new one, and then I rewatched the first one. I still have to do the second one, but I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like right now, I'm just like all in on this like Quiet Place style
Yeah.
dinosaur. So I thought that was really cool to have heightened senses and stuff like that that they didn't
Yeah.
account for, and I think that was really cool to have this dinosaur be different in a way that was cool. I don't know. I liked it.
Yeah, 100%. I think it would have been easy to do another hybrid, but instead doing something with a genetic amalgamation felt really interesting. And actually, it kind of taps into the fact that Wu isn't the only person who could do what he was doing, right? And so I think that speaks to the wider world in terms of the fact that dinosaurs are out there. There's going to be laboratories where this is happening all over this universe now. But the thing I really liked was the connection back to military application, which
Mm,
is Santos saying, "Oh, I think these could be sold for military application," because that's just sparked a thought in my brain, which is we still don't know who Hoskins was on the phone to in Jurassic World. And the sentence he says is, "We might have an opportunity here." So it could have easily been somebody like Santos, which is just it's really cool to think about.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, because she would be the best fit. I never really made that connection. I don't think, but
Mm.
having her, she is like the test subject for the dinosaurs that will go into the cave and eat the enemy, belt buckle and all.
Yeah,
She is literally testing that, throughout the movie and throughout this TV show, and of course the handler too. Like she's testing that theory directly, and it's working. It is very much working. I
yeah,
think they got lucky in Dominion. They got lucky in some of this show, and yeah, and I think that theory is really cool. So that would be awesome if there was a connection there. Hey, maybe we
yeah,
shouldn't speak it out loud. Let's let Scott and Aaron
yeah.
come on, do their thing.
Scott,
Uh,
Aaron, if you need us to just remove that chunk of the episode, let us know.
we'll take it out. But but yeah, so acoustic baryonics, very awesome. In addition
Yeah,
to that, we mentioned red too, and directly tying
yeah,
to the baryonics. One thing that I absolutely loved, um, which I know maybe not everybody will, but I loved it. I thought the inclusion of the Atrociraptor directly mimicking Dr. Sarr with the snapping was really cool, and it felt like a direct tie to like I said this to Scott, the kind of smartness that the dinosaurs had. Smartness isn't a word, I don't think, but it ties it directly into that intelligence that the
I was
velociraptors
about to say
had.
intelligence is a word.
Intelligence, that's a word, that they had in
Yeah,
in the first movie, in the first Jurassic Park, by testing things, and they're testing the
yeah,
perimeter fences, they're opening doors, they're doing things differently, and I think that this dinosaur testing this theory and like thinking, oh, can I make that noise? And then it makes that noise, and then kind
yeah.
of mimics the
The
thing, and it was very
baryonyx is like,
cool.
what's going on?
Yeah, it's like, wait, who do I listen to here? And then it pulled like an Indominus Rex with the Velociraptors in Jurassic World and
Yes.
turned everybody again, turned it against the guy. So I thought that was really cool and a way to tie it into the intelligence of dinosaurs and what we saw in Jurassic World, what we saw
Yeah.
in Jurassic Park. So I loved it. I thought that was really cool, and it made Red again very intimidating. If it wasn't enough already.
It's just so cool thinking how much development that Atrociraptor has now compared to its appearance in Dominion, which was pretty minimal.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. This
Oh, and
again,
there
this is
is
why I need
on
to
that note,
rewatch.
actually, on that note, there's a really cool detail which we learn as well, which is that it was the Atrociraptors that attacked Brooklyn, and you
Hmm.
actually get you don't see it, but it's the moment before it's going to bite, and you learn that it's Ghost that took her arm, which I just thought
Yeah.
was really brutal because I think all of us naturally, because of the red eyes and the appearance, thought that Ghost was like the most vicious Atrociraptor, and then that kind of fed into it fully.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't know if there's like a hierarchy between these Atrociraptors, if like one is worse than the
It
others.
goes
If red is
red and
smarter,
yellow and pink and green, orange and yellow and blue. No, that's a velociraptor.
it is, yeah. So I don't know what that song was, but I appreciate you singing it. Thank you. But Atrociraptor, great. Yeah, we did get that flashback sequence, which I thought was really cool. I love the Atrociraptors. I really do. I think they're
Yeah,
so
dude.
cool.
Me too.
They're so
We
scary.
need the rest of them in
Um,
Hammond Collection now, like double time.
yeah. So let's talk about. I know we talked about the lab a little bit, but I do want to bring it up some more. There was some other work,
Yeah.
that we could see being done in there. They had different, like Jurassic Park 3 style tubes with like the dinosaurs just incubating.
I was going to
in
say,
there.
don't say Jurassic Park freestyle. People will think there's raptors.
No, I mean, we did hear some raptor calls in this show, but yeah, it also happened in season 1. So in those crates somewhere, there's a velociraptor. Where is it? Where is it? I don't know. But
It's one of the
this
crates that got
facility
lost coming up the river.
could be. This facility did hold like underground cages and stuff that we never really
Yeah.
saw. We never really saw, but Captain, I forget his name. He said like, all right, the Majungasaurus got out, sorry, but I put
Yeah.
everything else underneath, so they're all locked away. And of course the lab, I'm maybe I'm missing the connection or I forget or whatever, but Dr. Sarr kept blaming the operations crew for all the dinosaurs getting out.
Yes, he was blaming
but
the operations crew, but he had got
was it
them
just
killed
him?
by the baryonyx. Yeah.
So he was just the one that would have been letting them all out, I assume.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think he was letting them out. I just think there was nobody left to properly maintain them because they'd all been killed by the Barry.
Okay, I mean, I guess it's interesting. I think that's a little plot thread left, kind of like unanswered a little bit, but it's not one that really matters to me.
Dude, I got to stand up while we're recording today because my there we go. I've just been sitting all day, so let's continue.
Should I stand up too and go up here? But all right, so I thought the lab was really cool and interesting, and there's that pit down below. But it's a big facility, and there's all these facilities around the world, so you have to imagine that there's different ones just like this. Maybe other scientists, who knows? But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool that we got this underneath like a chicken farm. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that setup was so cool as well with like the chained Monolophosaurus that were the guard dogs. Like that was a pretty cool just little detail to pack in there because we hadn't seen the mono again in Chaos Theory until now. So it feels nice that they're kind of layering back in the animals that we saw through Camp Cretaceous as well.
Yeah, that was nice. And you had mentioned, I think in our spoiler-free chat that there wasn't a ton of dinosaur variety this year, or this season, but that's okay. I think that was really cool that we got to see. We still got to see a lot of different variations in the Suchomimus.
Yeah. Oh, the baryonyx takes the cake for me as well.
Baryonyx was great. Yes,
that was so cool. Yeah.
Majungasaurus was awesome. And what I really liked though was that it wasn't just the dinosaurs that were the threat. We're in Senegal, in Africa, and there's other creatures out there. It's not just dinosaurs. And I thought that was amazing that we've got a terrifying hippopotamus out there. We've got lions out in the outskirts of the jungle. So I thought that was very cool. I know, somebody in this show said like, hippo is not that scary or something. And I was like, oh yeah, they are. I remember personally getting chased down by one in Africa. It happened to me.
Oh my
literally.
God.
So yeah, they're scary. They're very scary.
Dude, the lions were so cool as well, right? Because that's a callback to Fallen Kingdom. So it's a callback to the San Diego zoo scene at the end of the film, which was just really cool.
Almost just spit my coffee out everywhere. Almost choked on it.
Did I blow your mind?
Yeah. Oh, and I meant to bring this up during the lab sequence, but there were the eggs that they've been following around all season long. We spotted them, I think, at the end of last season, and particularly Bumpy's egg was in there, very distinct. And I love that Brooklyn used the eggs as like, or used that specific egg as like, hey, they're not going to bother us anymore. I thought that was really
Yeah.
cool, and Bumpy will get her egg back, I suppose. And
As
also,
long as
no
Bumpy's
Bumpy.
still there when they go back. Yeah.
No Bumpy at all this season. Is that a first? Because I think at least we've gotten shots, like a 1 or 2 shots of Bumpy
I think
in
so.
like the season 4 or 5 of Camp
Dude,
Cretaceous, I
oh
think.
my god, dude. Imagine if they go back and Soyana's taken Bumpy as payback.
I don't think she's that petty. I don't know. Would she be? Would she?
I think she would be.
So,
Although she doesn't want them to bother her, so I guess she'd
yeah.
leave them.
I don't know. I mean, the entire reason for this show is that,
Maybe this is where Rain
people were
Delacour
sent after
comes in.
Brooklyn. Maybe he's the one. Yeah, he could be the one. Yeah, I think there's a possibility for him to show up. But
I think
let's
so.
talk about.
I'd love to see Scott Hayes back.
Yeah, I only have like 2 more things I think I want to really talk about. One of which,
Okay.
let's talk about the Dinosaur Liberation Now. If you're only listening to this, you
So
can't
do we
see
want
that
to
I
talk
have
about them
a
earnestly?
mask. What do we want? What do we want to do?
Do we want to talk about them earnestly?
Yeah, earnestly. Yeah, I think so. Going into the show, I wasn't sure what to make of Dinosaur Liberation Now, because in my mind, I'm like, Dinosaur Liberation Now, like, sounds like good guys to me. Like, that there's nothing
Yeah.
really that sounds like they're doing anything wrong. They're trying to get these dinosaurs out back into the wild, not in captivity. Which, it's a double-edged sword a little bit. But we did see Claire and Zia and Franklin doing that exact same thing in Jurassic World
Maybe
Dominion.
they were part of Dino Liberation Now.
And maybe that's the tie. Maybe Franklin is in Dinosaur Liberation Now, and that's where Brooklyn is able to give the evidence to. Maybe.
But all ironed out.
But in the end, I think Dinosaur Liberation Now was kind of a joke, right? Like they weren't really.
They were kind of underused, I think. But I think they'd be. I don't think they'd be the only group like that out there, right? I mean, whenever there's some kind of societal issue, there's always going to be vigilantes.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I believe Scott mentions in the spoiler chat, I believe, is the fact that like they had different versions of this group, right? Like there was maybe a more sinister version of this group, but that didn't get passed down the chain. So
it was really interesting because I didn't get to say it in our chat with him, but he said that there was a version which was going to be more eco-terrorist at one point in time, and I found that really interesting because the thing I immediately thought of, and I'm looking them up to see if I can find their name, is the maybe I can't find it, but the organization.
Maybe don't Google this.
No. It's another fictional franchise.
Oh, fictional.
I immediately thought of the organization that Jonah Hill is in charge. Not Jonah Hill. Not Jonah Hill. I meant Alan Jonah. The organization that Alan Jonah is in charge of in Godzilla King of the Monsters. Like, it feels like they could have been that kind of group.
I think we talked about that group in one of our pre-season episodes at some point, because that was a group that was doing a very similar kind of thing, but their means were very nefarious, and they were killing people left and right, and they almost got there, right? They took some people hostage, and so they started to go down a route that was not very good. And we'll see if they get expanded upon anymore, but I can't really imagine they're going to be a part of the story too much going forward, other than for like some one-off need that maybe Brooklyn needs. But they are probably going to be they could be looking for some payback to Brooklyn, because she did steal that boat right out from under them with the password for the location and everything. And so I mean, there's a chance they do show up again, but I thought that they were kind of like a little comical little addition here to the season that, like, I didn't take him very seriously because Ernest was a little silly and right, like
Yeah.
purposefully, like they
He
were done
just
that way
wants to be
purposefully.
taken earnestly, Brad. Yes,
Yeah,
I've
poor
made that joke
guy.
for the second time this episode.
So let's end things, I think, unless you have anything to offer, but let's end it with Brooklyn because we didn't really talk too much
I
about
never
her.
have anything to offer. It's fine.
No, no, I know. This is why this is your first and last podcast episode. Um, but Brooklyn. So we get a lot of Brooklyn this
Yeah,
season. Fantastic job by Kirsten Kelly voicing that role
dude.
again.
I have to say, Kirsten literally nailed it. Like this
Mhm.
season, with the Brooklyn heavy episodes, it literally felt like it was a more mature Brooklyn from Camp Cretaceous. Like you could have told me it was General Ortega, and I would have believed it. And I put that in my non-spoiler review because I just like her performance was so zoned in on what it needed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like I think with Kenji, I can tell I don't know what's going on with Kenji, and even the cast like doesn't know what's going on with Kenji. Like the crew is like, Kenji, what is your deal right now? But I think like that voice actor, I can tell it's a different person. But
Yeah,
with Brooklyn, I'm like, it's so seamless to me that like I can't even tell a difference, and it blends so well that I don't even think about it because she's so good in that role. And I love the addition that she brought to it and the heart that she brought to this new version of this character. So I thought that was great, and I'm so glad that we don't have to lose out on a character like Brooklyn because we don't have the original
yeah.
person. I think that's great.
I agree
Um,
100%. And I think that Brooklyn gets some really interesting development throughout this series because you really see her leaning into a phrase that I think I've said on this show before, which is the idea that sometimes to do some good, you have to do some bad. And we
mm,
literally see her working with Daniel Kahn. So we get the explanation of where that money came from. We get her involved in activities that Dino Liberation Now are doing, which are illegal activities. You know, the police arrived to try and deal with them, but they're gone. And you kind of see her complicit in something where they attacked a DPW location. And yes, she let people go, but she was still complicit in the attack. So I think her character's on a really interesting trajectory because I think for a person like Brooklyn, where you're fundamentally a good person, you can only do so much bad stuff under the guise of an investigation before it really starts to eat at you. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how they explore that.
yeah, I mean, she doubles down, right? The entire show. She doesn't backtrack. She
Yeah.
doesn't like, you know, uh, get off her word. She like sticks to it, and she stays with Soyona at the end. But like, yeah, I'm still a little confused because there was that episode where we do see Daniel and we get to see like the exchange of money and stuff like that. I was a little still like confused at why did he give her the money. I don't really
Mm.
like. I know like she was gonna be like a buyer, but
I
like
think he
I
was
don't.
seeing
There was not
somebody who could
enough.
act as a proxy for him, right? Because he couldn't do the buying
Yeah,
himself, but he could get
yeah.
her to do it, and that's his way back into the market.
I guess so. It felt a little underexplained for me. I watched it twice and I was
Yeah.
still like, What? Why did that happen?" But in the end, it didn't really matter too much. It was just like a means to an end. Um, But and also like one thing that Daniel said in season 1 and in the like recap, which also this season had like previously on Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous or Chaos Theory. I was like, oh, that's fun. With
I
Paul
was going to
McHale
say that's
Williams.
one hell of a recap.
But yeah, so there was a mention that like she seemed kind of dangerous, and I didn't really get that
Yeah.
from her with that exchange. So I don't know if there was other exchanges that we didn't see, but she didn't really come off as dangerous in her interactions with Daniel. Um,
Mm.
so there's that. But I don't know. I thought she was fun to follow, and I still
100%.
I don't think that she's ever going to go down like a true bad path. I think she's very focused on taking these people
Yeah.
down, and I don't see her getting confused in any way, but I do think like what you said, like the damage is being done to her
Yeah.
that she might not be able to come back from in a way that, not that she's going to turn into a bad guy, but like that she's not
Yeah.
the
But
same
will
Brooklyn
her
that you
friends
once knew.
forgive her, right? Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's true, but also, will her friends forgive her because she's
Hmm.
still doing these things at the end of the day, and like she'll have to pass their judgment as much as she will their own. I want to ask you an interesting question, Brad, and
Okay.
it's something that I've been thinking about a lot because we've had 5 seasons of Camp Cretaceous with these characters and 2 seasons of Chaos Theory, and it really feels like Chaos Theory is ramping up the stakes more and more. So, in a third season or fourth season or whatever, I'm really curious. Do you think they'd go as far as killing off one of the campers?
I still don't see it happening. I still,
Mm.
despite the fear and like the blood that we see throughout this show and all that stuff, I
Mm.
still don't think they'll go down that route. If they do, bravo. Like that would be really, I would assume, good storytelling, but I don't know how they'll go down. But I think that would be pretty interesting to see, because Jurassic has really shied away from that in recent years, right?
Mm.
We haven't really gotten the connected part of our team that gets just like killed by a dinosaur. It just doesn't happen
Yeah.
really anymore. And maybe that'll happen in Rebirth, hopefully. But there's something that makes all of this so much more threatening when that does happen. And I think you can only tease it so much before it becomes tiring, I guess, where you're not as
Yeah, I
threatened.
get that.
And I think this is also what Rebels had to discuss with, and they discussed this openly about like utilizing
Dude,
Darth Vader.
yeah.
They had Darth Vader as part of that show, but they couldn't just have him out there losing every week. He had to be,
Yeah.
somebody who still was, imposing at the end of the day after every encounter he
Yeah.
had with the Rebel crew. So I think they need to treat it in that way where these characters are still
100%.
imposing, the dinosaurs are still imposing, and you can
Yeah.
only, which I know they've done it already because now Brooklyn is, she's down one hand, but like, so you can only run away so much, and they do a very good job.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with like letting that slide in this show. Like they do a very good job at like, dodging dinosaurs left and right.
They
But
do,
how
but
many
you've
times can that happen?
referenced. Yeah, and you've referenced something really interesting because actually, Rebels, Kanan's death is one of the most impactful deaths in
Yeah.
any
Oh my
sort
God.
of television media, and that was primarily a kids show as well. So I think that sets the format for it being possible. I almost wonder if they were to go down that route, if it would be somebody like Ronnie dying instead. So then it's an adult character that dies.
I mean, technically they are adults, right? I don't know.
True, yeah, you true, true, true.
So I mean, look, the entire team is gonna be, not entire team, but there's gonna be some people at odds with each other, right? Like they're very much,
Mm.
they need to figure out what's going on with Ben because he kept secrets from them, and even Darius is like, look, we can save this for later. We can't deal with this right now, but we have to get out of here.
Yeah.
But we'll put that on pause and we'll talk about it another time. And then they need to really figure out what's going on with Kenji, and because like he
Yeah.
he is throwing himself at every possible dangerous situation. So maybe there's a chance he could finally throw him into a situation he can't get out of, which I guess I could see happening. And Ben too, I think I could see that happening for him. I don't think I could see it happening with Sammy, Yaz, and Darius,
No.
but Brooklyn,
Okay, cool.
Ben, and Kenji, I think could potentially.
Yeah. So, well, interesting potential for future storytelling.
Yeah. Any last notes you want to discuss before we head out?
I've said it before. I think the title of my non-spoiler review is Jurassic World Chaos Theory Season 2 is incredible. I'm genuinely so happy that this show stuck the landing and we got a really good second season.
Yeah. I can't wait to talk about more. We'll have to do that soon. And
Yeah.
of course, everybody listening, please tune into our next episode. It should be the next one where we do talk spoilers with Scott Kreamer. So please stay tuned for that one at some point. And yeah, we'll certainly be breaking down more stuff like this on the Jurassic Park podcast. So stay tuned for that with more from Tom. Check out his articles on JurassicParkPodcast.com. Tom, anything else you want to plug in the meantime?
Tales from a Jurassic World Season 3 is in development.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Go follow him on Dark Jurassic as Tom_Jurassic 7, I think. No, Tom_Jurassic.
I genuinely thought you were saying that. I genuinely thought you were calling Twitter Dark Jurassic there for a second, and I was like, fair enough.
Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, it's a terrible place. So we're not on there anymore, but you can follow us on Threads and TikTok and all those other places. And yeah, you know, I've been uploading episodes more sporadically recently, but you know, once Rebirth comes up, we'll get on a better schedule. But yeah, so I'm excited.
Once Rebirth comes out, it will be the rebirth of the podcast.
That's true. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, I'm excited for that. I can't wait to see if this show ever ties into this movie, and we'll stay tuned. But season 3, let's go. Bring it on. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, for watching this. If you're on YouTube, we appreciate it. But enjoy, everybody. Have a good one.